From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex, I'm your host, Steve Urban, and here is your Riderflex podcast episode of the day. Right, we're all trying to do Zoom from home, and it's like, okay, let me make sure the dog's like in the other room. Let me make sure, all this stuff is, let me make sure nobody's downloading stuff and dragging my internet, All right, Gareth Evans on the Riderflex podcast. How you doing, Gareth?
I'm great. It's good to be hanging out.
Thank you so much for joining. Interesting business you got going on. I did all the homework on you I could this morning. I'm on the treadmill. I'm watching some old YouTube videos and some clips about you and the company. I'm trying to catch up this morning, having some coffee. So super interesting topic and the business that you're in. But before we get to that, let's find out about Gareth, the person. Give us a little history, even going all the way back to, your mom and dad, where you grew up, and some early family stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Gareth Evans, currently based out of sunny San Diego, but originally from just outside Liverpool, England. Grew up there, mum and dad, brother and sister. I think that really set the scene for the life to come. Mum and dad really were all about experiences and adventure, not really materialistic things. It was all about setting the right structure with some flexibility so that you could go off and explore and do what you wanted to do, but always setting that example of trusting relationships, which has really kind of set me up to want to explore the world, build the right relationships, hang out with good people. And so kind of anything outdoorsy is kind of my passion. Mountain biking, motorbiking. I've got a wife, Melanie, who is also an avid mountain biker and triathlete, and so super athletic, and a 6-year-old son who keeps us both very busy.
Did you meet her doing one of these activities, like say in some sort of event or something, or you just had that in common when you met? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we actually met through work. We were both. I was working for a small consultancy firm. I had moved to Canada at the time, okay. And every Friday we get together as a company, a couple of hundred people, very kind of young age, very adventurous, very outgoing, and we'd have a paddling pool full of beers, and we'd all kind of talk about what had gone on in the week previous, and the new hires would be introduced. And this one week, Melanie was introduced, and she had these pink shoes on and bubbly attitude, and was a high level soccer player. And yeah, she caught my eye straight away. So it was a cool company. I'd say probably over 50% of the company was either married, dating, or hanging out for sure. So it was that sort of environment.
When you first met her, where you're like, man, I wonder if she's in better shape than I am. I wonder
and she still is.
That's pretty. So she's from Canada?
Yeah, Calgary, Canada.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. All right. Liverpool and Calgary, now living in sunny San Diego. Wow, that's a major change in weather for you guys, right?
Yeah. And my son was actually born in Australia, so he really struggles with probably identity, or maybe he will in the future. But yeah, Australian born, English dad, Canadian mom, living in the US. So yeah, he's got a unique character. But yeah, we spent a lot of time in the cold winters of Canada, and then explored the world, spent some time in the Middle East, Australia, and we got a real feel for being able to be outdoors all day, every day, and not have to even think about the weather. And I'm not sure we could go back to the long, cold winters.
Yeah, I have not been to as many places as you, but Colorado in general, and then Southern California, especially San Diego, like, man, those two are like, they're way up there, they're way up there. If I could tie in some of the outdoor activities I like to do in the mountains of Colorado with the San Diego weather, that would be paradise.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good spot. You can actually find good mountains from here. So this weekend we're going to go skiing up in the mountains up above LA, the Big Bear area. So it's accessible if you're willing to
It's
spend a bit
accessible.
of
Yeah. I remember the very first time I went to San Diego as a young man. I was probably in my 20s on a business trip, and I remember coming out of the airport and getting on a rental car, driving down to 101. Driving up the 101, I guess. Uh, and I'm on the Pacific Coast Highway, thinking, "Man, I know why people like to live here. It's pretty cool." So very cool. So, by the way, when's the last time you did like an Ironman or something? What was your last major event?
Major event was actually in Colorado. We did Breck Epic 6-day mountain bike race together, Mel and I.
Wow.
That was pretty intense. That was altitude, tough weather conditions. So that was probably the biggest and hardest event in a while. That was the year before COVID. Yeah.
6 days. What do you like? Sleep in a sleeping bag, like on the side of the trail, and then get up and how do you do that?
Luckily, they call it a cloverleaf format. So every day from Breckenridge, they'd do a route, and then you come back to Breckenridge, and then you'd stay in your hotel room or your Airbnb.
Okay.
But long days. Yeah,
that's not too bad. Have you done anything where you're like you don't shower for 4 days and you're like,
yeah, I've done a few intense adventure races. I think the longest was 36 hours straight, to a point where I was certainly hallucinating and falling asleep while riding. I was actually seeing in Canada alligators walking across the road. That's how tired I was. I couldn't take off my jacket. Like Mel was trying to help me in one of the transition areas, saying, you need to cool down, take your jacket off. And I'm just staring at the Velcro strap, not even knowing what to do with it. It was, pretty intense. Yeah, it's good though.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Do you, because I'm guessing how old are you? 40, 40-ish?
Close. 38.
38. Okay, 38. You said motorbike, right? And as you get, because I rode motorcycles when I was younger, and I still ride my ATV. I'm 54, and I still ride my four-wheeler in the mountains, but I'm, what's the word I want to use? I'm careful because my back and my spine and just different things will hurt if I get too crazy. Do you think about that now, getting closer to 40, when you jump a hill on your motorcycle and you land pretty hard? Do you think about what am I doing? What am I possibly tearing up? Do you think about any of these things?
I'm definitely more cautious on the mountain bike and motorbike, to a point where I feel probably a bit embarrassed to say this, but the game Spike Ball, where it's like a net and it's almost like volleyball, but you stand around in a circle with a team and you bounce a ball off the net and you try and keep it in the air and beat each other. I actually pulled a stomach muscle playing Spike Ball on the beach. And I've struggled with that for months now. So that's when you know that you're getting old and you need to, you can't even play beach activities without hurting yourself.
Totally get it. Totally understand, my friend. Well, it's cool that you're in shape and you're still able to do lots of stuff now. You still got a ways to go before you have to worry too much.
Yeah.
Walk us into your career a little bit. When you got out of college, and then kind of walk us through, like, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up? I mean, I know you majored in environmental science, I think, right, at Lancaster University, but did you have a plan, or did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur at some point? Walk us through your career a little bit.
Yeah, quite a unique background, actually, in the sense that I always wanted to be an Air Force pilot. So all my schooling was leading up to that moment. And when I went to university, I did environmental science because it was something I enjoyed, but it was a way of getting into the university to then get access to the air squadron. So in the UK, the Royal Air Force allows you to become a volunteer reserve pilot, and they pay for you to be trained while you're going through university. And so I spent 3 years kind of learning how to be a pilot on the weekends and a few evenings a week in collaboration with doing my degree. But then it got to the end of university, and the Air Force had purchased a bunch of new jets that were now several years behind being delivered, and they trained up all these pilots, no aircraft, and so they stopped hiring pilots for a few years. So this kind of culmination of events led to me not joining the Air Force.
Okay.
And I was kind of lucky enough that I had taken a year off between school and university, so I'd already traveled the world, done a fair bit of charity work and things like that, and
cool.
I kind of got some of those life experiences to know that I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but it was probably a blessing in disguise not going into the Air Force, because
Yeah,
I'm a bit too freestyle for maybe that lifestyle. So
gotcha.
then I almost took another year out after university and tried to figure out what I wanted to do. We actually spent a couple of months training with the Shaolin monks in Northeast China with a few university friends, and we got some cool, fun, unique, once in a lifetime experiences. And then I started running out of money, ended up in Canada, spent times.
How'd you end up in Canada?
There was actually, at the time I was dating a girl whose family lived there, and we planned on going there. That didn't happen. You know, it didn't happen together, but I felt like I didn't necessarily want to be in the UK. So I moved out to Canada anyway. And then the oil and gas industry was booming there at the time.
Okay.
And I had the environmental science degree, didn't have a clue what I could do with it. But it seemed like contaminated lands was the place to be. And there's a lot of opportunity for cleaning up old oil and gas well sites.
I see.
So I got the chance to hang out with the company we were talking about at the start, you know, really young, high energy company. And I started cleaning up oil and gas well sites for companies like Shell throughout the Rocky Mountains. Really good experience, you know, being out in the middle of nowhere, many hours from the city, camping out on site sometimes, hanging out with big construction crews, digging up old well sites. So I got a lot of leadership experience and just hands-on practical, how to manage different people, different budgets. And I did that for about 5 years before sort of putting my hand up and saying, you know, throw any opportunity that you can at me. And I was lucky enough that our company got acquired by a major global engineering company, Worley. And the chance cropped up to move to the Middle East. And I spent 2 years in and out of Iraq doing social, environmental, and liability assessments for oil and gas companies wanting to come into Iraq post the World War.
Okay.
So that was a super stressful time, living on US Air Base, getting mortar attacked most evenings, personal protection teams taking us to and from our work sites.
Well, you weren't married then, were you?
Yeah, I was married, and Mel was in Dubai, and she kind of held down the fort. And it was stressful for her for sure as well, because you'd be on a call like this at the end of a work day, and then suddenly alarms would go off in the background, the internet would get shut down, and she wouldn't know what would happen. And so that was pretty intense, but it was a really good experience for us to both move away from Canada and try something new together. Okay. And Dubai, being such a central location, allowed us to travel all around the world from there. And then through my networks, Perth, Australia was then going through a super cycle, a lot of mining companies, a lot of oil and gas companies. And I was asked to move there and lead an environmental team of about 150 people. And then
you go to your wife and you're like, hey, we're going to move again. And now we're going to divide it. Is she like, yeah, cool, let's do it? Or is she like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, no, a big part of my, I suppose, our collective success is the fact that just say yes and get on with it and, you know, embrace the adventure. So cool. I think there's definitely moments where you get sick of packing up your bags again and leaving friends and family. And that's certainly tiring, you know, trying to start afresh all over again multiple times over. But it's also an adventure, and it's really exciting.
For sure. And you guys are both adventurous, so it ties right in, right? So okay,
definitely.
So you get to, had you been to Australia before you went?
Just for a kind of brief trip myself. Mel had never been. That was the first time.
All right. So you move.
Yeah. And then actually I had a really good mentor who suggested, you know, you've been in the environmental field for a while now, and I know you've got bigger aspirations. I suggest, you know, throwing a few zigzags into your career. How would you like to take on a commercial strategy pursuits role? So helping the business frame its strategy and then go out and win the work. And so that really changed my whole outlook. I learned a lot more about the broader industry, about how to win work, how to tell a story. So that was a really good move. And then the US then contacted us to say, we love what you've achieved in Australia. Would you bring those same learnings back to the company here. And so we got to move back to North America. We ended up in Calgary. We went through one winter and decided we didn't want to be there. I had achieved what I needed to achieve in the job, transferring that knowledge. And then a business development opportunity came up in California, in the energy sector. And so I took that
for another company.
Same company.
Okay.
Literally spent 15 years traveling around the world with Worley.
Okay.
And so took on the business development role, learned a lot about how to sell and build relationships and networks, and a lot about the energy industry. And that led into then leading the energy team, consulting team for Worley. And that's where I then met my now co-founder, and we incubated the idea of VECKTA within Worley in collaboration with our other parent company, Zendi. And then we launched VECKTA in November 2019.
Okay, so let's talk right there. Let me stop you right there. I want to ask you some
details.
Yeah. So you and your friend are having beers on the side after work, saying, "Let's do it. We've got to do our own thing. Let's start our own thing." Was it over a year? Was it over 6 months? You guys are talking entrepreneurial conversation. How does it develop? Like, are you calling him saying, "Come on, man, let's start something," or how'd that happen?
Yeah, so we were consultants trying to sell a service to the industry, and we saw that the cost of doing it the old-fashioned way was just, it created too much of a barrier to entry. So people would have to pay us $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 to do a study to assess whether there was an energy solution for their business needs.
Okay.
And we realized that to pay that much up front would prevent people from wanting to consider it altogether. It was too much of a pill to swallow. Okay. And so we were kind of living through that pain. And then Tristan and some other key members, actually including his wife, Andrea, started looking at the market and came across some unique software called Zendi that allows you to design and optimize an alternate energy system extremely quickly, extremely accurately, and consider all the complexities that go into designing these systems in a really seamless way. So we used it as consultants for a little over a year and validated its value, but also saw that was just one piece of the challenge the market was facing. The market was still quite nascent, quite unorganized. There was no consistent processes and workflows. So we then kind of proposed to our company at the time, we think there's a business opportunity here, and we pitched it, we incubated it, and we kind of entrepreneurially convinced our key stakeholders that there was a business there and that they should invest in it. So not a unique entrepreneurial story. We definitely didn't go out there and punt it on our own. We had to take a lot of stakeholders on the journey.
Yeah. So, okay. So you didn't have to bootstrap it on your own and eat ramen noodles for 6 months, but it is a good learning piece for some of the listeners where so correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were consultants working your business using Zendi, the software. So Zendi was at that time a partner or a vendor for you, I guess, to your consulting firm, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. We negotiated an exclusive license for us to use it and create a differentiated offering.
Gotcha. I mean, that's an avenue for the listeners for the podcast here, for anybody that has an entrepreneurial spirit. You can figure out a way to partner with a vendor or a manufacturer or somebody that you're already in a quote relationship with. You can pitch an idea to them, and sometimes they'll sponsor you or support you or invest in you or whatever. And so
that's right.
Yeah, great move. So you guys you put together this plan, you schedule a meeting with Zendi, and you're like, okay, cool, let's go ask them to put some money into this.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So Zendi and Worley were super supportive. They saw the business opportunity together and invested in it and helped us launch VECKTA, and today are still our parent companies.
Okay, so they are, when you say parent company, this is a wholly owned subsidiary that you have equity in. What's the structure?
Yeah, it's a standalone C Corp Delaware company, but it's essentially a joint venture between Worley and Zendi today.
Okay.
So they've backed it and financed it, and then we've got an employee stock option pool.
I see. All right. So you will own a piece as you move along. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, cool. That's how that was set up. Congratulations, by the way, on pitching
Yeah,
that and
thanks.
getting them to. I mean, that's a big deal, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
it
pitching a
was
business
definitely
idea.
yeah, it was definitely a great learning experience because you're dealing with a 60,000 person engineering company that's got its processes and procedures and workflows, and then Zendy essentially was a startup in their own right, and so trying to bring those cultures and expectations and together and create a deal that everyone was happy with it was a really good experience.
Did you have to meet with the Zindy CEO?
Yeah. That's why I'm in San Diego. He's based here and his team's here.
Okay. Was the first meeting like you walk into the conference room? He's like, okay, now what do you guys want to do? What are you guys doing?
They've been thinking about this industry for a long time. They've been working on their solution for 10 years, and it's super unique, really, really smart people, great technology. And so they have big aspirations for how it can be applied to help the industry move forward. So this was a natural fit.
Awesome. Okay. Give us the VECKTA overview real quick, the 3-minute elevator pitch, for everybody listening. Go for it.
Yep. So VECKTA is the energy transition market platform. We're essentially empowering commercial and industrial business owners today to independently assess their energy needs and give them access to be able to compare. I've got a central grid utility provided energy infrastructure today, so I pay utility for energy. I am suffering either cost escalations, reliability impacts, or my customer base is expecting me to reduce my CO2 emissions. They're the big three drivers. What are my options? And so VECKTA empowers them to assess their options very quickly. We do that independently. We do it agnostic of the providers. And then we provide the tools, the processes, and the workflows for that project that has the right return on investment and the right business case to then progress through its life cycle within the marketplace and be connected into the right stakeholders. So whether that's equipment suppliers, constructors, someone wanting to finance the project. So we're really bringing all the pieces of the puzzle together. And the analogy would be, it's like let's say your holiday buying experience 10 years ago. You'd have to call an airline, a rental car company, an insurance company, or you go to today Expedia and you give it some parameters. I want to go to Mexico. Here's my date range. Here's what I'm interested in. And it gets packaged up for you. We essentially are creating the same experience for people in the industry today who, people don't know where to turn. We saw in Texas a few weeks ago, the power went out for almost a week because of cold weather. And now there'll be businesses who have lost revenue as a result of that. They are worried about their energy security. The cost will likely go up because the utility will now have to invest a lot of money into future-proofing the grid. And the alternate to that is actually creating your own on-site energy system. And so that isn't straightforward. It's complex in nature, but we simplify the process and really take all the pain off the end user's hands and allow them to go on the journey and be super excited and creative with it and see the potential of a cleaner, more reliable, cost-effective energy solution without having to do all the heavy lifting of working with consultants and constructors and sort of managing all these different deal flows and contracts.
Is VECKTA the single point of contact? So VECKTA is my consulting contact and my SaaS solution. Is it a consulting company or a SaaS company or both?
It's a marketplace. So essentially, we take a success fee on transactions that would occur within the marketplace. Today, there's a lot more, because it's quite a nascent industry, there is some degree of white glove service or consulting just to, we want to learn through doing, we want to go on the journey, we want to be in the trenches with the customers. So we have a team of experts who have developed these projects in the past, and they'll help the customer go on that journey and figure out what the right solution is for their needs. And then all the time we're automating that process as we're going through it and learning.
So the business model, you're getting paid as a consulting firm, and you're making money off of whatever solution you provide and implement, whether it's windmills or not windmill, or whether
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
whether it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So say you're a mining manager and you've got a mine site, and today you're importing diesel to your site,
Okay.
and it's costing you an absolute fortune. And then there's a logistics issue and you can't get diesel to your site, and your mine site has to shut down. There is an option to consider, maybe solar plus storage plus a wind turbine, but you don't know, what is the right solution for me? What can it help me achieve? How much reliability do I get from that? Can I reduce my carbon emissions as well as reducing my operating costs? There's lots of questions to be answered. And so the technology allows you to plug in, here's my current situation today, here's my desired outcome. And then it does all the thinking for you and recommends, here is your customized energy solution to meet your needs. And then our software platform then connects that project to the other stakeholders in the market to then execute it. So we're just facilitating an outcome. We're not the constructor, we're not the equipment provider. We don't finance the projects, but all these pieces of the puzzle today are quite disparate, unconnected, complex tasks in their own right. So we're trying to bring it all together into one consistent, repeatable workflow.
Okay. So in layman's terms, I'm going to repeat back to you kind of what I'm hearing. So just for a commoner like me, so let's say I own a giant warehouse up in the mountains somewhere, and I have some trucks and logistics and warehousing and all this stuff. You can help me. Well, and first of all, my power goes down all the time, and I need like backup. I don't know, because the winter comes, I lose electricity, it sucks. So I need some other backup of some kind. So that's number one, is reliability and backup. I'm also like getting pressure from all of my green friends that say I'm polluting the planet and I'm not sustainable and I'm not, healthy enough for the planet. So I'm getting pressure from those guys.
That's right.
And third is so A, you're giving me more reliability, B, you're making it better for the planet, and C, you eventually are saving me money overall. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
When designed in the right way, that's the recipe for success. Today, the current business as usual process, it tries to consider these things, but there's no way in the market today outside of the way Zendy's designed the optimizer to consider the technical parameters as well as the financial business case. Mm-hmm. And so bringing together the technical solution as well as the commercial aspect really provides a unique and differentiated offering. Mm-hmm. And then as that warehouse owner, you don't want to then start paying a consultant to do a feasibility study for you, and then a constructor to do the engineering design. Mm. And then the constructor then has to go to market and get prices from each of the equipment suppliers. Mm-hmm. That takes 3, 6, 12 months. Mm. You then decide you don't want to finance it yourself. You want someone else to come in and finance it. So there's all these moving pieces. How do you bring all that together in one integrated platform where you get all those answers at your fingertips?
Gotcha. Okay. I think I got it. How big is the company employee wise? How many employees now?
We're 25 between full-time and contract people.
Wow. 25 in what, 2 years?
Yeah. Well, just over a year. We started hiring March of last year. So yeah, that's been the biggest challenge and exciting piece of the puzzle, is growing the team through COVID. It's been completely remote. It's been a wild ride trying to build the team and the culture and set the right tone and doing all that virtually.
Plus you're learning how to be CEO.
Yes.
Right. What have you learned so far? What are a couple of tips you would give a brand new CEO? They just got promoted recently. They're listening to this episode. Tell them what you've learned so far in the early stages.
Yeah, I'd say it's hard for sure. Don't go into it expecting it to be easy. I think the biggest takeaways for me is, set that really audacious goal, get people in the team that can buy into the mission. It's all about the people for sure. I think we are learning all the time that it's the people that make up businesses, and regardless, of the product, it's the people who make the product that make things happen. So we need to make sure that we've got the right culture and values and an environment where people can really thrive. So that's been the main focus of our effort, is making sure that that's all in place, that the talented individuals can then come together and execute. I'd say another big lesson is just being present and not you need to kind of listen, observe, and take a step back every now and then and give yourself a chance to really absorb what's going on, because things are moving at a million miles an hour. There's lots of different pieces to the puzzle, and it's very easy to kind of get sucked in and not see the wood for the trees. So I think being in the moment every now and then really, really helps. A big part of, I think, the way I like to operate is you have to have fun in the process. So how can we build fun and excitement and energy into the business? So we try and, we're all, you mentioned 4x4ing earlier, or your side by side. We did that a few weeks ago as a team in the desert outside of San Diego, and
oh, nice.
Been axe throwing and paddle boarding, and we try and get together in a socially distance responsible way as much as we can, just to create that culture and that energy. And
so important. Yes. It's so important. By the way, axe throwing after I've had 4 or 5 beers is I've done that a few times. It's pretty fun sitting around, on ATVing, said axe throwing, having some beers, and sitting around by the campfire. That'll it's good for the soul, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
It really is good for the soul. Okay, very, very good. I appreciate you sharing all of that with me. Thank you. I want to ask you a couple of things about, I guess, I don't know if this is a touchy subject or your sensitive subject, but this, the whole oil versus other forms of energy and transformation that companies are I feel like they're trying to go through, and these topics. I live in northern Colorado, rural Colorado, where Weld County, Colorado, which is like super oil kind of mentality. And then I drive 30 minutes towards Boulder, and it's if you're in the oil industry, you're like evil. No, I'm just playing. It's not that bad, but my question is, where do you see that going? Where do you see a planet that eventually operates without oil 100 years from now? I'm curious as to where you see that movement going.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize is petroleum products are in absolutely everything we use. Right. I'm surrounded here, just computer, microphone, clothes I'm wearing, there's petroleum products in absolutely everything we use. So I think people need to be cognizant of the fact that for the lifestyles we've chosen, there's a lot of need for what the oil and gas companies are creating. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. But what we are also seeing is, on the clean tech side of things, the technologies and the price points of those technologies, and the likes of the VECKTA systems to empower people to then consider them and deploy those solutions, are becoming more accessible and more viable all the time. So I think from an energy perspective and from a transportation perspective, I think we'll certainly see the world being increasingly electrified. And I think we'll do that through cleaner energy resources. So I think we'll see a lot less oil and petrol being used in vehicles. Gas is certainly a very good transition technology, as we go from coal, we're going through this gas cycle, and that's helping us build out the renewable energy generation technologies in the process. And so we're on a journey. There isn't one golden bullet. It's going to be a combination of multiple different strategies. We believe distributed energy and microgrids, bringing the energy closer to the need and not having to rely on centralized power generation and vulnerable transmission lines. Distributed energy is a huge opportunity for all of us. It makes it more efficient, it makes it more effective, it makes it more secure and reliable. So I think we're going on that journey. Are we doing it quick enough? We'll see. I think there's a lot of really smart people with a lot of money behind them. We've seen just in the last few months with the Biden administration coming in and the amount of money being injected into green technology, and that industry is really creating a lot of stir. And that's not unique to the US. We're seeing the same in Europe as well and around the world. And increasingly countries are putting limits on emissions. And when petrol driven cars can be produced up into, I think some of the targets are 2025. No longer countries will accept petrol driven cars being sold in their jurisdiction. So that's going to drive a huge amount of change. I think what we haven't figured out yet is, with then the resurgence of electric vehicles and things like that and increased electrification, we need the infrastructure to be able to handle that. And today the infrastructure can't handle it. And so that's where we think there's a huge business opportunity to help build out that sustainable, cleaner, more profitable energy solution. It has to be profitable for everyone. So that's kind of our philosophy, is it has to be distributed, it has to be sustainable, it has to be profitable.
That's the tricky part, right? How do you transition in an organized, logical fashion while being profitable and all at the same time? Like that is really tricky, right? Like I haven't met anybody. It's so interesting when I have this conversation with people, like I've never met anybody that says, yes, I want to pollute the planet and kill us all. Like I want the planet to be dirty and nasty and polluted. Like nobody says that, right? Now, even the oil guys, even the people that are in the oil industry that work in the oil field, none of them said, nobody wants that, right? I think we all want a healthier planet, right?
Yeah.
It's just making the right decisions to get there in a logical way that's profitable and smart and all of those things that you just said. I thought you summarized that very well.
We've got, we're pretty passionate about our core values in VECKTA, and I think it kind of summarizes it up nicely. We talk about challenging the limits, adapting purposefully, and then empowering co-creation. And so, we need to challenge the status quo, and we need to ensure that we're all educated and we're all thinking outside the box and we know what's possible, and not just doing stuff because that's the way it's always been done.
Right.
But then we need to adapt with purpose. We don't want to just adapt for the sake of it and throw a bunch of money at solutions that haven't been properly thought through. So how do we make sure that we're all doing that in a smart and sustainable way? And then the co-creation piece is around, we have to do this as a community, as a team, as a collective of people across the supply chain to make it happen. Otherwise, no one company is going to solve this. I think that's the key to this, is there needs to be a lot of collaboration.
I'll boil this challenge all the way down to something very small and personal. I want the mountains of Colorado and the sky to be, or I want the mountains to be clean. I want the sky to be blue, and I want a healthier planet. But I also want to fill up my Jeep and take my ATV to the mountains and ride around with gasoline and oil. I mean, I want both, right? How do we do both? I don't know, and that's what you're talking about, is how do we do both in the right way? So I love your mission and values and what you guys stand for. I think it's fantastic. And it's interesting that you're leading VECKTA coming from your background where you used to, all the way back in the day, go to old oil field sites and clean up. It's fascinating that you had that journey. I think it's a perfect fit. I can see why all your friends and the connections around you said, hey, because you guys had to at some point. You're sitting around going, okay, well, who's going to be CEO? And they're all going, Gareth, we think you're going to do that. Were you like, no, you do it? Yeah. I mean, you guys had that conversation at some point, right?
And it's funny, I think my first ever performance review when I was like, I don't know, 23 years old or something, they have like the typical layout of what's your aspirations for the next year, and then what's your 5+ year goal.
Right.
And the 5+ year goal, I said I want to be CEO, and this was this was it caught the reviewer by total surprise. But I've always wanted to kind of lead a business and empower a team and try and create an environment where people love coming to work and thrive and doing what they do. So I think it's always been on the horizon, and yeah. So,
just talking to you over the last 40 minutes here, I've met a lot of leaders in my day, right? And I've, like you, have been in a leadership position my entire life. Your personality has a very welcoming following is kind of what I would say. I mean, if you meet Gareth, you're not following him because he forced it on you and he's this big, overpowering, booming, like loud figure that you're like, okay, I better follow this guy or it'll be bad news. It's more, you have more of the personality where you visit with you and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to follow that guy because he seems like he knows what he's doing. He's got a good head on his shoulder. He cares about people. He's careful before he speaks. He thinks things through. Like, I like this guy. Like, you're not a forced leader. You're a welcoming, warm leader is what I feel from you just on the conversation.
Great. I appreciate that.
Yeah. If I had beers with you for a few hours, I'd be like, yeah, I think I'm going to follow him too.
I think it depends how many beers.
You're right. Exactly. Or pints. Don't you call them pints? If where you're from, it's a pint, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I was at Belching Beaver with a friend the other day after a mountain bike ride, and we sat down, and the barman said, "Is that a 16-ounce beer that you want?" And I had to turn around to him and say, what is that? Is it a pint? If it's a pint, then yes.
Last couple of questions. If you could call your 21-year-old self, were you 21 coming out of university, roughly? How old were you?
Yeah, 22.
22. Yeah. If you could call your 22-year-old self now and talk to him, knowing what you know, what would you tell him?
I think just say yes, live life to the max, live in the moment, get after it.
Figure it out. Just say yes and go.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times me and my partner have done that building our recruiting firm, Riderflex? I shit you not. He's called me over the last 5 years. He'll call me and be like, "Hey man, I just told them that we could find this, and this position. We've never done it before, but I told them we could do it."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, great. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then the last one is, if you had to put your core purpose into a sentence, your core purpose in life, if you had to summarize it, and let's separate your son and wife. Let's set that off to the side. So let's just say for a minute that that's obviously your primary core purpose. But aside from them, how would you define your core purpose?
My core purpose is to develop the right conditions and environment for a team and a community to thrive around the product that we're building to create this more sustainable, profitable, and distributed energy future. Because if we do that, then we'll all thrive, right, and we'll all be happy, and we'll all have access to the lifestyle we want in a far more enjoyable way.
Oof, I like it. Gareth, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviewing. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get information and pricing on the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.